Everyone has something to share, in either wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people, unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited to talk to the Intel lady. She has a satire channel which began in 2021 after becoming very frustrated by conspiracy grifters, in particular those promoting Qanon. It seemed the best way to expose these people was to use humor based upon their own words and broken promises, also made parodies of celebrity grifters and political figures. Welcome to the Missing Link, Jen, the Intel lady. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really good, thank you.
Awesome, great to hear. So why don't you start off with telling us about yourself, telling us about your journey, a little bit about your background, education, maybe what part of the world you grew up in, what part of the world you're in now, anything about yourself that you wanted to share with the world, especially if they're hearing you here for the first time.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to go over. So I suppose what brings us to today, I'll maybe start there and work backwards. That might be that might work. So obviously I introduced as Intel Lady. However, I have actually been on YouTube since 2015. I had I still do have a spiritual channel called Lightworker Lady. So that channel I set up to do, it was mainly because I really enjoyed doing card readings and just spiritual talk really. And I thought, okay, I'll start doing that. And that developed over time. And I really loved the spiritual community. I felt very, very connected with them. I've had a lot of very unusual paranormal experiences throughout my life since childhood. And I just always felt connected to something, whatever that something was. I always felt that there was a connection there. And so yes, it just seemed like, you know, the right thing to do to set up a channel that I could link up with other people. And, you know, communities, they do link together. And what I noticed after a while was that the spiritual community, particularly from around 2017, the spiritual community slightly changed, and it became a lot of spiritual channels were talking political matters, in particular American politics, and that linked to the 17 Anon movements. And I was quite surprised by that, because I thought, hang on a minute, these are like spiritual channels and people, you know, promoting spiritual stuff. It just didn't seem to fit with that particular that particular movement. It was just so strange to me that those things started to merge together. And I was very surprised at some of the people that were coming out and saying things, making promises, talking about things that were to do with that 17 movement. And I started to call people out on my Lightworker Lady channel, and you know, people, I suppose, I think the first person I called out was David Wilcock, because he was making rather bold promises about indictments and arrests and all of these things that he since hasn't actually conveniently mentioned, because none of the things that he claimed was definitely going to happen, because he had inside sources telling him these things. None of those things happened. And so I'd said something about it, and then I went back to just doing what I usually do on my channel. And then I thought, no, I can't do this anymore. So I ended up saying what I thought about certain people who were telling their community some very tall tales about inaugurations and what will or will not be happening and who will or will not be inaugurated. So I just said, right, that's it. And I ended up doing a video on the day of Joe Biden's inauguration about all of the nonsense that has been promised to truther communities, to the spiritual community, even across the ufology communities. Everyone seemed to be getting in on this 17 business, and I just let them have it. And I lost so many people from my channel, and I thought, well, okay, that has to happen. I kind of walked into the fire a little bit, but I thought, well, I don't really want you on my channel if you're going to be, you know, believing all of this kind of stuff and falling for these grifters. And there's always a trail back to money with these people. They're either selling some sort of merch or courses, a lot of ascension courses, so many ascension courses. And what happens when you've done ascension 1 and you haven't ascended? Then you got to go and do ascension 2, because that's like, you know, it's important. Just in case you didn't ascend the first time, you're going to have to do another course so you can ascend. Didn't ascend the second time? Do not worry. There's another ascension course you can do. It just so happens to be $333. You'll definitely ascend this time. And I couldn't bear it. I just had to call it out. So I did. So Intel Lady did not exist at this point. And it was in calling it out, I guess, I must have fallen into some sort of algorithm where other people were calling out the same group of people. And I discovered Seeker of Truth, who you've interviewed. And he had a show called Griftbusters with a few other guys, and with Will from Cold Beer Confessional and Justice and another guy. And I was chatting to them. I think I'd gone back and forth with them about a few things and said, you know, I come from a spiritual background. I have a spiritual channel, and I'm getting tired of all of this. And I've called them out, and I've really copped for it now, and they're all really angry with me. And I don't quite know how it happened, but I think someone had made a sketch for him based on nonsense that Charlie Ward was talking to his followers about a cleaning lady who had answered the phone at the central bank, and he asked her all about the QFS and when that was going to happen, and a cleaning lady gave him all this classified information. So made a sketch on it and got somebody to pretend to be the cleaning lady, which wasn't me. And I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to do some satire, because my background before I had a YouTube channel, and in fact, before I had children, I was a professional actor. So yeah, I told you I'd work backwards, just going back in time. So I thought, well, I can act. I haven't done it for a long time, you know, I've been busy parenting, but maybe I'll just throw something ridiculous together and send it to see what he thinks. If he likes it, he can put it, you know, he can put it on the Griftbusters show. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter to me. I did it, and he loved it, and he played it. And then that just sort of started something rolling with me. I'm like, well, then I'll just make another one. And then, yeah, and then I started creating all these characters that were mainly based upon the 17 grifters. And yeah, it just I started making parody infomercials about med beds, about the QFS, about all these gold MLM schemes they all seem to promote on their channels, all sorts of things. And I also make content for other YouTubers as well, whether they ask me for it or not sometimes. And I think it was just sort of a way of drawing attention to the people that that don't come from a good place, that are really just after as much of that as possible, and will tell their followers absolutely anything. And I just no, I'm not the best researcher, and you know, there's plenty of other YouTubers out there that are brilliant at that. And I think if I was to sit there and tell you why I don't trust these people and why you shouldn't trust that person, and this, there's so many people that do that. And I thought, I don't think that's where I fit. And I thought, actually, you know what? I think I'm just going to use humor. I'm going to watch these grifters videos. I'm going to watch some of these so-called spiritual gurus videos. I'm going to take what they've said, the promises they made, especially the ones that didn't come true, and I'm going to make parodies of them and satire of it all. And for some reason, it sort of took off, and people were like, oh, I like that, because it's a sort of unique way of exposing these people, and it, you know, it helped open a lot of people's eyes, and also sort of it raised the vibration from people getting annoyed and upset with being conned and lied to a sort of level of humor of, oh God, I feel a bit silly, but we're all having a laugh about it. We're all, you know, we all find it funny, you know. And I think, well, I always say to them, who hasn't been conned in their life? You know, we all go through that. It's like a rite of passage, to either be cheated on or to be conned out of money for something, or to believe something, you know, believe a tall tale somebody's told you. Who hasn't gone through that? At least at the end of it, with this, we can come together in this awesome community that I've now found myself part of, and we can all laugh about it and go, oh, well, you know, we can be silly. Silliness is good. It raises the vibration, and it makes, sometimes you just need a bloody good belly laugh and to forget about all the silliness of the world. And if I can do that for people, then, you know, then that's a positive, isn't it? Just finding a positive in all of the madness, especially since 2020 and the whole world went completely bonkers. You know, we all need that light relief. We all need something to bring us together in a happy way, rather than bringing us together in a fearful way because somebody's told us that this awful thing is happening to this group of people, and you know, we've got to do something about it. We've got to help these people because these people are having all of this stuff. There's all these, you know, these dangerous underground tunnels filled with this, that, and the other, and there's clones running around the White House, and there's, you know, it's crazy. We have to be able to come together and go, all right, now, before anyone says, oh, so you don't believe anything? Well, no, that's not the case at all. There's plenty that I believe, and there's, as I've said, I've had a lot of paranormal experiences, some very bloody weird experiences in my life since the age of, from what I can remember, around 6, things that my parents have told me, bizarre conversations that I had as a child, things that I knew that I definitely shouldn't have known, all sorts of stuff like that. And so I'm not, you know, I'm not a cynical person at all. But what I don't like is injustice, people being lied to, people parting with their money. In the same way, I think Em said similar to you, you know, when you can't just sort of sit back and watch somebody sitting and lying to tens of thousands of, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people about things that are supposedly happening in the world, because they've been told by a group of white hats that, you know, that this is happening and that's happening. And they never show any proof. They never, you know, they never prove all the things that they're saying. They just tell you that they've signed an NDA, so they can't tell you where this information has come from. They've signed an NDA. It's a military NDA. It's not just an NDA. It's a military NDA. So I can't tell you, you know, where this information, where this intel is coming from. And I think that's why I chose the name Intel Lady, because I was so sick of hearing that word intel. I've got intel. I've had intel. There's some intel come through on the wires. I've been told that my insiders, all of this kind of nonsense. So I thought, right, well, it's all nonsense. So I'll be Intel Lady. So I've gone from Light Worker Lady to Intel Lady, but Light Worker Lady is still very much alive and well. I don't do as much on that channel anymore. I should get back to doing that. But I felt like, from a spiritual perspective, I was being pulled in the direction of Intel Lady. And I guess if making people laugh raises the vibration, makes people feel good, then that's my spiritual contribution. At the moment, that's where I'm needed the most. And I'm quite happy to do it. When people don't need me anymore, I'll stop doing it. But right now, everything's just absolutely crazy. So not to mention all of the vacuous celebrities, because I do cover them as well. I don't just cover conspiracy grifters. I also cover vacuous celebrities, woke craziness, just, yeah, it's all there's so much out there that is just so bonkers that I'm never short of material. Oh, politicians as well. I cover politicians on the left. I cover politicians on the right. I believe they should be ridiculed equally, because they all talk a lot of nonsense. And yeah, so I think that covers everything ish.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we do live in a world where snakes will prosper. And it seems like, the shadier and snakier you are, the more you get promoted, the more that you get adopted into this dark world that seems to want to, divide people through these different groups and divisions. And, and that's kind of what we're all kind of battling to try to find the information that's true among all the nonsense. And, and I was even, duped by, this trust the plan. And, it was just, hopium is a real thing. And when, people want this world to be a better place. People want, these darkness to be exposed. People want this so bad that when, a light knight in shining armor comes, people just want to believe it so bad. Sometimes they, they'll believe it more than what the evidence shows, in that, proof. And, is it a good thing that people have the hopium? It's a lot better than people with their, heads in the sand. But, we really want to enlighten people on truth and not just, string people along as they move the goalposts. They keep moving the goalposts. They keep moving the goalposts. So, how long before people really, comprehend, what's actually happening, and, does this place get to a better place?
Exactly. It's that hopium, isn't it? And I think when again, it's like a movie of, the good guys and the bad guys and the hero that comes through. And I think people get caught up in that world a little bit, don't they? If they're told a horrific story about, things that are supposedly happening. I'm trying to be careful how I word things, so I don't want to get you into trouble on any platforms. But there is somebody that I cover who claims that she rescues, I refer to them as the mole children, and from situations where they're moved around, and and she puts them in safe houses, and that she works with a team of marshals, and it's complete nonsense. It's garbage. It's absolute lies. This woman is, I believe she's a convicted felon. Actually, she's wanted in, I believe, the state of California. She's got a warrant out for her arrest. She has conned so many people out of money, And she goes around telling the same stories about how she was T-worded into the adult movie industry. Not true. She was willingly walked into that career and made quite a career for herself out of doing that, then decided that she didn't want to do it anymore and made up a story that she did. It was done against her will. Wrote a book about her life, which was just full of lies, to the point where her relatives were actually writing on the Amazon reviews, this is her real name, this is her background, none of what she's saying is true. But she has taken a lot of donation money off people for there was a hurricane, was it Louisiana? I think, yeah, it was a hurricane in Louisiana, and it caused a lot of destruction. She set up a fundraiser with another person who was based in the UK. They've now fallen out because she realized that that this person was a total grifter and taking money. I don't particularly like either of these women or trust them, but at least one saw how bad the other one was. I think it was about $28,000 was raised for the victims of this hurricane, and I believe only $2,000 was actually given over to the victims of this hurricane, and it mysteriously disappeared. But she's still going to this day, and going on. She tends to go on religious channels, born again Christian type channels, talking about how she was moved around big churches, and given to pastors, and all of this kind of stuff. And it's all lies. It's all total lies. So I made a character based upon all of the lies that she has told over the short few years that she's been on our screens. Yeah, I call her Mad Max Maddie. And sometimes she's a tunnel raider with her marshals, and sometimes she's giving totally legitimate legal advice to people, because she also claims to have passed the bar, even though there's absolutely no paper trail or evidence that she is qualified as an attorney. It's just so many lies she's wrapped herself up in. And when people start to dig on her and find these things out, then she'll move on to another group of people and start again, and just start grifting again and again, and people fall for it. And it's maddening, but if we can make humor out of it and create characters from it, then we're not as mad about it, because we're just sort of face palming at how crazy people can actually be.
And if one person can not get grifted by one of these things, by your work, then it's all worth it. If one person doesn't get duped, if one person, realizes maybe I shouldn't be giving money to these things. And when you mentioned that, it just reminds me of what they did in Haiti, with all this, when Haiti had that, destruction there, and everybody was donating, and all the Red Cross and the Clinton Foundation, they took all this money. It was billions of dollars. Yeah. And I think they built like 3 houses with billions of dollars. Like, seriously, how many houses could you build by that? But there was so much, that was going on, that that's what they do, is they just take money. And I don't really like to talk too much about other people and things. That's not what I do, but there's someone that's doing something like this right now in America, and I'm going to mention it here today. So this is something recently that I found out. There's this guy named Sean Christopher that does Glutathione. And he's got all these thousands of people, and he says he's a part of this and with secret space program and all this kind of stuff. And, really he's a meth and a coke head. And he's actually, the latest thing, what I just heard, he actually sent some products to somebody that I knew, that I referred to. And I was actually did some lives with this guy, and I was actually, I knew he was a little strange, but, I thought he was, in a good place. he sent some products that came broken. Then he said he was going to refund them, so she sent him more money, and then nothing, and then he ignored me, and I said, look, like, this isn't cool. And then he ended up blocking me and all this kind of stuff. But so I haven't really had much communication. But apparently, and this is why I mention is what you just said, is he's going around saying that he's going and rescuing children with him and his dog, or going down into the tunnels and rescuing children, and please, everybody, donate, we need some money. And he's going around, and he came to somebody else's house that I knew, and apparently he let his pit bull out and it killed the guy's cat, and he was asking to try to score these drugs, and yet he's asking people for donations so he can fuel his cocaine habit and things, right? So that's why I kind of wanted to mention it. For one, I think people need to be aware of who this parasite is if they don't already. I went and I copied and pasted a message to every single person about what he did to my friend at the time that I saw like him, that I was connected to, just so they knew that that's who he was. But then I just washed my hands until I just heard this information about this guy, right? So I just wanted to make people aware of that. It just, because it kind of goes the same thing of what you were saying about this lady. She's rescuing children, she needs money, and same kind of craziness on how people are conning people, and because they're pull on people's heartstrings, children rescuing, and that's the thing. And just give us some donations and we'll go rescue children. And then people get conned into that, right? And everybody willfully donates, right? So people that donate, they donate. But if they're donating to something that's not true, people should be aware. If they still want to donate to the person just because they like their wacky character and they don't care if it's real or not, that's all. You're free to donate to whoever you want. But at least if you have information, like I see that you're doing, is making these satires on these people, or on these movements or whatever that they're doing, and then at least maybe you're helping people to maybe not put their money into some people that are nefarious in their deliveries.
Yeah, and it's always those bloody secret space program. I mean, these secret space programs have got so many members now. How is it still a secret? They're everywhere. That I'm astonished how many people have done these magical 20 and backs, all the Corey Goods that are coming out of the woodwork now, Bory no good, as I prefer to call him. They're just unbelievable, but they always use children. There's always that just makes me believe they are utter psychopaths as well, because they talk about these things as if they make it so real. They also seem to have, it's as if they're reading the menu at the McDonald's drive-through, the way they talk about these subjects. They're so empty and cold when they're talking about it. Like, to me, if this was real and I knew that this was happening, and I knew it was happening, I don't think I could be making videos about it. I'd have to be talking to law enforcement and knocking down their damn doors until they did something about it. I wouldn't be, going on some fanciful adventure, locked and loaded, ready to go and, kick some tunnels in and go. It's nonsense. This is absolute garbage. And they are pulling, you're right, they pull at your heartstrings by telling you about the poor little children, all these children as well. Where are the parents? Where are the parents of these children? These, I mean, some of these grifters are talking about literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of children. Hang on a minute. You can actually follow the trail, the statistics of actual reported missing children, and you can find it, because they tell you these results as if no child has ever been found. And what they're actually doing is they're changing how these statistics are made and calculated Many of these that have been missing are usually runaways who are then returned to their families, so not missing anymore, but they'll take the data and go, look how many missing children there were in 2021 or whatever, and then they'll make it look like these have been kidnapped and never been returned, and they're in some kind of cabal system of this, that, and the other, and that's not reality. Like, for example, I can only speak really of the UK and how things are handled here when something like that happens. But if a child or children go missing in the UK, it makes the headline news within hours. It makes the local news within an hour. If they believe that somebody has been abducted and they've seen someone has been taken or whatever, they move very, very quickly on it, and the news will follow the missing child until it has been resolved one way or another. And that's how it works in the UK. Obviously, I know different countries have different ways of doing things, but I can only speak for the UK. That is how they handle things. Some of the biggest cases of children who were abducted and sadly didn't survive, the news was all over it, even way back in the 60s, 70s, way back, not that far back. But these things were always reported on. They were always recorded in the local newspapers. They went to the local news, then they went national until there was a conclusion one way or another. But these grifters, these people will make it sound as though there's just hordes and crowds of mole children. There's just hordes and crowds of them just stuffed in these fictional tunnels. I've no doubt there are some sort of military, I'm not going to use the word tunnel, but, military, I don't know, installments, whatever, military places that have underground sections to them. But I'm sure they probably do exist, not in the volumes that these secret space people and conspiracy grifters would have you believe. I think there's probably a very, if any, there are a very small amount. But the way they exaggerate everything, they always use children to tug on your heartstrings. And if you ever call it out and say, I'm sorry, I don't believe that this is quite happening the way that you're claiming it is, then, oh, you're an apologist for them. You're one of them. You're just like them. You're an enabler. No, I'm just realistic in that how they're saying it and how they're wording it could not happen. It just couldn't happen. There would have to be so many people involved in this process. So many people involved in this process. And so much, it's like, imagine like an evil lair in a James Bond movie where there's, all these evil sniper soldiers walking around, and they were all in on it, and they all knew they were all the baddies. But that's what they're creating. It's fiction, what they're creating. It's not possible. The way the world is, people have consciences. That the majority of people in the world, really the majority are good people. I can't imagine. There must be so many dark people in the world, so many evildoers in the world that would want to be involved in processes where people are taken against their will. It's crazy to me. It just doesn't make sense.
I believe there is a lot of that's going on. There's a lot of these underground bases. There are these underground tunnels. There's lots of sex trafficking, drug trafficking.
Oh, yeah,
their adrenochrome where they're torturing kids and stealing their blood. Like, this stuff is real. Some of these satanic rituals, that there are some truly horrifically evil people that are doing some really bad things, here, where they show, like, they have spirit cooking with Marina Abramovich, where they're having, they're actually, eating off of people. And like, so there are some, and people have come out with some of this satanic ritual abuse and talked about these things, some children seeing, like, so there is real stuff that's going on. Are there people stopping it? And, there's these groups of people. I sure hope so. I really wish they were. Are they happening like they're saying that it's happening? I don't know. I in my heart, I hope it is. But, it just takes education, people becoming aware of what's going on, to what's going on, opposed to, they're all just being fixed. So there is some horrifically evil things that are actually happening here. But Diane has a little change of topic question for you. She says, what exactly is a light worker, question mark? What is zoology? What is ascension? And what exactly is the fifth dimension? Are we being hoodwinked?
Right. I don't know. I've never heard of zoology. Ascension, it has been talked about for a long, long time. And I think that is a really great question. What is ascension? Because everyone seems to talk about it. And what is it? Why are we being promised this? And what exactly is it? And it was something that I went along with at first and thought, oh, wow, that sounds, everyone's talking about this, and looked into it. And then I concluded after a while that for me, ascension would be the moment of physical death, when we leave our bodies and return to whatever it is we're returning to. This 5D stuff is talked about a lot as well. And at first I was excited by this. I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. 5D, how awesome. So we're gonna move to this whole other way of living that is so much brighter and lighter than where we are on this dense earth plane, where we're just going about our mundane lives. Oh God, something better than that. Great. And we're all and so many people were promising, oh, we're going to ascend to 5D. And then people were saying that, oh, you do it separately, you do it at different times. Then some people were saying, oh no, everyone's going to do it all at once. And again, after a while, I just thought, I'm now not trusting that that's a particular thing either. I think it really depends what your belief system is. For me, the term light worker is somebody who is into, I suppose, more of a new age way of thinking, where it's about upliftment, happiness, kindness, caring, listening to people, healing in your own way, meditation. That was a huge thing for me, and my channel's main focus in the end was meditation. I write and record my own guided meditations for people. That's a huge part of being a light worker. But it's also about understanding the light and dark of reality of the world. You can't just have, fluffy clouds and happy rainbows and it all be positive and only positive speak, because that's not the reality that we live in. You have to appreciate that there's light and dark, there's light and shade to everything. But yeah, I hope I've covered.
Yeah, that was great. She said, interesting thoughts there, Intel Lady. Thank you for touching on these strange concepts. Matt is asking if you know who Helena Blavatsky and Allison Bailey are.
Nope, I don't.
I think they're part of, bringing in some darkness into the world, conning people into different, ideologies and stuff. So maybe you can tell us about your own experiences, paranormal, angels, demons, aliens, anything that you remember, so people can maybe get to know about a little bit more about you and your own personal experiences that you've gone through in your life that comes from your eyes, verifiably from you.
Yep. So as I mentioned earlier, probably from as early as age 6, that's when my strongest memories go back to. I have vague memories of being 5, vague memories of being 4, but stronger memories from 6 onwards. I would talk about family members that I have never met to my parents. I'd be able to name who they were, what they did for a living, where they lived. At night, my dad didn't tell me this until I was in my 20s. He said, I used to listen outside your bedroom door after you'd gone to sleep, because she would just be talking. He said, and then I'd peep round the door and you'd be sat bolt upright in bed with your eyes wide open, and you'd just be talking this gibberish, like speaking in tongues. You'd just be talking like philosophy and using words that were not in your vocabulary, not in the vocabulary of a 5 or 6 year old. I have no memory of that myself. This is what my dad told me, and my dad's quite a cynical person, so he just wouldn't ever come out with anything unless it had happened. And he said, I always found it fascinating because, and you know, these are words that you would never say as 6-year-old Jen, you know. And so I just sort of had this knowing. I had this strange knowing. I felt at peace when we had to go to church. So my parents were Church of England, but because I was a brownie and a girl guide, we would have to do church parade. So we'd go to church every Sunday and carry my little girl guide flag and all the rest of it. And I used to have great conversations with the vicar in the church about all sorts of things, philosophy and stuff. And he used to enjoy talking to me. And I was only probably brownie guide, so it would have been 8, 9, 10.
What's a vicar?
Like a pastor in a church.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, no, we have vicars here. We call them vicars. And I always felt quite at peace whenever I went there. You know, it was quite a nice feeling. And then I would speak to my mom about, I remember this conversation I had with her, and I said, there's this boy, and he comes to talk to me a lot. And she said, oh, does he? Right. Who's this boy? I said, oh, I don't really know his name, but he fell down some stone steps and he died. But I wasn't fearful when I said it. I was very sort of, oh, well, this is what happened and this is what he told me. And then she went, oh, okay. and she said, oh, what's he doing talking to you? I said, oh, we're just talking. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, this boy would talk to me quite a lot. And it was just completely normal to me. Obviously not normal to any other child. And I found that out quite quickly. If I mentioned it to any other child, then I became the odd one, the strange kid, the kid you don't talk to. But this was just normal to me. Things like that didn't frighten me. I was never afraid of it.
Did your parents try to dissuade you from and call you that's crazy? You're not really seeing that. You're not, because a lot of parents, you know, end up having that. Oh no, you're just imagining that. That's not real. But when you're having this real experience and then you have parents telling you it's not real, it really confuses children. So it seems like your parents just allowed it, not making you feel different from it, because I hear a lot of stories about parents that do tell them you're crazy or that's not real. Just go back to bed. You're not really seeing that. And I think that may be hard and confusing on people when they're actually having these type of experiences.
Yeah, but they never did that. My mum used to say, oh, you're an old soul, you are. That was always her response. Whenever I'd tell her something about family, about relatives, about this great grandparent or that I'd never met, she'd go, you're an old soul. That was all she would say. She would never open it up any further than that. And that's what I was used to hearing. You're an old soul. You know, she's an old soul. And that was fine. And then they never tried to shut me down. They never told me. Sometimes my dad would roll his eyes and giggle and go, somebody's got a vivid imagination. He'd say that, but he never ridiculed it. He never made me feel bad for saying it, but he'd do a sort of, someone's got a vivid imagination, and then sort of roll it along, change the subject. But they never tried to, you know, tell me I was wrong or that I shouldn't say that or whatever. And I learned for myself not to talk to other kids about things like that because it was weird. When my teens hit, when puberty hit, that sort of fell by the wayside. There wasn't much going on there. I didn't have any particular, what I would call paranormal experiences. I didn't see anything, didn't notice as much. But I think when you're going through puberty, you're just completely wrapped up in your own juvenile stuff, aren't you? You're not, you go sort of selfish. So I think things shut down for me for a while, and then very much opened up for me again when I was in my very early 20s. And I thought, right, well, I need to discover what all of this is, because I don't know what this is. And then I took a real interest and started attending a spiritualist church and sitting in a development circle and learning how to meditate, and, you know, watching how other people worked. And I just found it all completely fascinating. And it was nice to be sort of among people who understood what I was talking about, who understood the experiences I had. And that was nice. And then my acting career took over more. I was doing a lot of touring around, and I did mostly theatre, a little bit of TV, but mostly theatre work. And then very shortly after that, I started my family. So my life changed, the landscape of my life completely changed. And the spiritual stuff always remained, you know, it was always there, no matter what I did. You know, even when my children came in, and I actually ended up running my own development circle, teaching people how to meditate, which I absolutely loved. And yeah, and that was nice. And then I think I probably brought you up to to sort of where I think I filled in that gap of where we were. I did have an experience. This is why I find ufology fascinating, and people who have had ET experiences and things like that, because I've also had that as well. That happened to me in 2017. I saw something that I had never seen before in my life, and then went on a journey of discovery to find out what on earth I had seen. And yeah, that was 2017 was a crazy year for really weird things happening from a paranormal perspective for me. But yeah, I saw what I saw with my own eyes. I saw with my own eyes, and, you know, yeah, it was kind of crazy. But so when people say I saw and I experienced this, I listen to them. And that's what I'm saying. There's certain things that I believe, and there's certain things that I question and think, what's your motivation here? Why are you selling the stories that you're selling? You know, is there more to it than, you know, is it more just a monetary grift that you're on, or are you telling the truth? Again, like I say, with these secret space program people, I tend to roll my eyes a lot at, because I just think, well, none of them are producing any evidence to back up any of their claims that they've been in, you know, this 20 and back scheme. And there's a really good YouTuber actually called Stephen Cambion of Truth Seekers, and he is very good at digging into people who make all sorts of claims like this and debunking them and proving, just by digging into their background a little bit, that they could never have been doing what they claimed that they were doing. Half of them who claimed they were in the military were never in the military, which is a very easy look up with a lot of them, because there's paperwork to follow if you've been in the military. But then they've got the stories of, no, well, actually the CIA pulled me out and put me into a secret, this, that, and the other. So there's no paper trail that I ever served. So they've got that covered, I suppose. But
It's classified.
It's classified, yeah. It's classified. You couldn't possibly. But yeah, so I'm not like a total, I don't believe this, I don't believe in all of these things. Like there's a lot that I do believe in, and that I do think is entirely possible. But I think a lot of people will take a little grain of truth and then surround it with total and utter lies, and make money from it. and get their clicks and their clap, whatever it is that they're after, the, you know, the popularity, the following, the whatever. The problem with starting something with a lie is that you've got to tell 10 more lies to cover up, to back up that one lie, and then you're going to have to tell 10 more, and then it's just exhausting. I don't know how people have got the energy to keep that kind of stuff up, but yeah, you should definitely speak to Stephen Cambion of Truth Seekers, because it's quite amazing how many people he has exposed as total con artists, total grifters, just based on the research that he does and finding out people's backgrounds. Quite a few secret space program 20 and backers.
Yeah, if you have any contact information after we're done, I would definitely love to reach out. Here at the Missing Link, we try to interview anyone and everyone that's got a story. We talk to people that have had space alien experiences, that have been impregnated when they're 9 years old by tall grays, and then Nordics come and take it out, and then they've been having communication ever since. Elena Dannon, she lives in Ireland, I think, and we've interviewed Corey Good, who done the 2020. He's gone for 30 years and back, and so we just try to. And honestly, I like to listen to people and their stories. And I honestly like to just, you know, find out from not a view that I'm already closed off, that I just honestly am asking them real questions, and I let them decide whether or not they believe in what they're saying or not. Not everyone that I have interviewed here I align with or I believe in, but I really truly come from a place of just curiosity, of just wanting to know why they believe it, why they're sharing it, and then let people decide whether or not they think the person is just insane, full of shit, you know, using it as a grift, just a way to get to the public eye. Because I'm not here to judge anybody, because for a lot of these people that we've interviewed 2 or 3 people that truly believe they're Jesus, a couple people that believe they're Archangel Michael. You know, I have a guy that I know that he thinks he's John the Baptist, and like these are, but they truly believe these things, right? So it's fascinating to pick the brain of people that believe these things and why they believe it, because, you know, to them, this stuff is real. So again, I just try to open this up. Like, this is our 506th interview that we've done in the last 2 years. So we're just giving the people the information and then letting people decide on their own. And that's kind of what the Missing Link is about, finding missing links about them or the world around us that they'd like to share.
I think it's important to allow people to make their own decisions based upon the information that's put in front of them. They're either going to believe it or want to do more research themselves, or not. And it's part of your journey of self-discovery to be challenged by different people with different backstories, different backgrounds, different experiences. I think, you know, I think that's why I like doing the comedy, because I'm not telling you what to believe or what not to believe, but I'm making it amusing what has been said. And actually, so this is quite a good example. So I did my first ever stand-up comedy this January. I'd never ever done stand-up before, and I was asked to go by a production company I had never heard of. And a few weeks before, I noticed that one of the people that was on the bill, because it was a comedy and a podcast event, so one of the people that was speaking was Gareth Icke, David Icke's son. And I was like, oh, okay. Because one of the characters that I was bringing to do the stand-up was a character I created called Targeted Individual, who she's based on that person that, you know, that believes every single conspiracy going, down every single rabbit hole, you just believe absolutely everything that they're told, and they're also completely paranoid and believe that they're being targeted because their Facebook account's been removed 4 or 5 times. So, you know, there's someone after them, someone watching them. And so I created that character, and I thought, well, I'll bring that character, and then I'll do the polar opposite of her. So I do another character called Skylar, who is like super woke, used to work for Twitter, you know, announces her pronouns the minute she walks into the room. So total opposite of targeted individual. I thought I'll bring both, but in the interest of balance, I will bring both characters to this event. And so I show up on the day, and there's two production companies there. There's a company that's filming it all, and they were called Iconic. And I'm like, Iconic. And I'm sat there having a drink, and then I looked at the spelling of Iconic, and I'm like, Ike, as in like David Icke. And I thought, oh my God, it's David Icke's production company. And then my heart just sank, because I'm like, oh my God, my targeted individual character has a David Icke joke in it. And so I'm stood on the stage with the people that have booked me, and I explained this to them. I said, I've got a whopping David Icke joke in my set, and I can't take it out. I can't take it out my set because it will wreck my whole flow. And I can't take it. And he went, they'll love it. They won't care. They'll find it funny. He said, they've got a good sense of humor. Don't worry about it. They'll love it. They'll love that character. Just go for it. And I was like, I no longer trust you. I was like, oh my God, what have I set myself up for? But I just thought, you know, go hard or go home. So I went on stage, and I went full on, and I dropped the David Icke joke, and they all laughed. And then his production company interviewed me afterwards. So I was like, you know what? They've got a sense of humor. I like that. I like that people can also laugh at themselves and realize that, okay, some of the stuff we talk about, some of the stuff we say is a bit out there, is a bit wacky, is a bit ridiculous, and we should be able to laugh at ourselves. And that's a good thing. So I actually came away with quite a lot of respect for them, for their production company, that they sat there, they let me tell the joke, everybody laughed at the joke, and no one tried to cancel me for it, or shut down my freedom of speech. They just went, no, say what you want to say. It's all good here. We are not easily offended. We'll find it. And they were right. They did find it funny. So that gave me hope. Like, I can go into an arena where people don't necessarily agree with me, or that I don't necessarily hold the same views as these people. I can tell jokes, and they will let me do it and not try and cancel me for it. And they will also laugh along with me. So brilliant, you know. It was a good experience, a scary experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. When we first started the Missing Link just over 2 years ago, someone had said that they got interviewed by David Icke's son, and they gave me his email address and said, hey, maybe reach out to his son. Maybe he'll give you an interview or ask about David Icke. And I didn't even know who his son was, because I'm not really a big David Icke follower, you know, or didn't really know. I've heard obviously the clips and things. I knew who he was. But I just said, hey, would David like to be on the show? And he agreed. And he was our 15th interview on the Missing Link when we just started. And then later on, I did interview Gareth, and, you know, maybe about a year ago. And someone was asking, what's your thoughts on David Icke? You know, what's your overall take on him, and, you know, what he's doing, you know, his information that he's presenting to the people?
Someone asked that for me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not a particular fan or a follower of David Icke. He's so grumpy. He just seems so annoyed all the time. I actually talked to his son Gareth. He was in the green room on the second night when I was doing my other character. Perfectly nice guy. I don't necessarily agree with the things that he says or that his dad says, but I can hold a perfectly reasonable, respectful conversation with him, which I did. And yeah, I mean, but I love that. I don't ever want to be sitting in an echo chamber. I don't need to have people nodding and agreeing with me. I mean, you know, you and I will have completely different ideas about things and people, and you'll have interviewed people that I absolutely wouldn't agree with the things that they've said, but you and I can still have a conversation. We can agree to disagree about a lot of things, and I think that's what's kind of missing. That's the missing link. That's kind of what's missing in the world, isn't it? Everyone seems to have to retreat to their sides. And oh God, what a boring world if everyone just sits in rooms where they agree with everybody. I don't want that. You don't go to a party and talk to strangers that you agree with. Chances are that these new people that you're meeting at this party will hold different opinions on religion, different opinions on politics, different opinions on lifestyle, and it's all good. You don't have to agree, but you can always respectfully disagree and hold debate and conversation without it becoming a screaming match. And I like that people can talk civilly to one another, whether they agree or disagree. And I think that is definitely missing in the world.
Yeah, it definitely is, because all of a sudden, if you don't agree, you're my enemy. And that shouldn't be the case, right?
No.
Just because people don't agree with you, it doesn't mean they're your sworn enemy and, you want ill will on that person because you don't agree with them. That means you're not a very good person if that's what you're thinking, towards. Now, if you're talking about, some of the horrific things that are happening, to the children or other things, and there's someone who take the side, well, yes, I could see why people could, maybe not like someone that is either partaking in some of these things or, defending or supporting pedophilia and all these other weird things that are going on, right? But, in most cases, like you said earlier, most people are good people. Most people have good hearts. They've just been indoctrinated and programmed to pick a side. And once you pick your side, I'm going to dig in. It doesn't matter what evidence, doesn't matter who shows me what. I've just been programmed that I have to defend this because and then there's the ego part. A lot of people have a hard time admitting that they were wrong. A lot of time have a hard time to say, well, yeah, sorry, maybe I was duped or conned. And what they say, it's a lot easier to fool somebody than convince them they were being fooled. And
Absolutely.
and that's why the stuff that you do, the comedy, the parodies that you do on this stuff is really important work, because you make light of things, and maybe in the hopes that people that are really stuck can look at it, laugh at it, and maybe a bright light goes off, in some of these people, thinking that, hey, maybe she is right. Maybe this is more than just something to laugh at, that she does, have some real good information in some of the stuff that you do.
Yeah, and I'm also really open to being challenged as well. If people say, well, I can present you with all this evidence that this person is legit, that that this has happened and that's happened and they're telling the truth, show me. I'm more than well. And I also allow people. I'm not one of those people that stops people from commenting. If they don't like what I do, I let people say what they need to say, because that's if you're a believer in freedom of speech, then you have to let people speak, even if you don't agree with them. You have to let them say what they need to say. Yeah, all right, fair enough. I might make a sarcastic response to what you say, but I'm going to let you say it, and that's because you should. And if you've got a platform, there is if you've got a platform and you're putting yourself on that platform, then you also have to appreciate that people will want to criticize and have the right to do so, as long as they do it respectfully. I'm okay with it. People get really personal and say really unpleasant things, then no, I won't stand for that. But generally, if people want to disagree with me, then they're more than welcome to, and I won't shut them down for it. It's all good.
Yeah, I watched this debate. Someone sent me something about the flat Earth debate, and we had this guy on here named Flat Earth Dave. Very compelling, a lot of strong, theories on his side or whatever. And he went on this big doctor's program that's got 3 million subscribers on YouTube. And he went up against this, I guess, this scientist or whatever. And they supposedly were supposed to have a debate, but this scientist that had a lot of actual evidence behind him came with an arrogant, ignorant attitude, everything. And I didn't even want to listen to him speak because of how he was already, and he was condescending, he was ignorant. Like, it's great to have a debate and just share your information, and you either agree, like I said, let people decide what they think. But when you're rude and ignorant to someone, I think that really takes away from any type of factual evidence you have, because it makes you look, like you're so small. And why would I listen to somebody that is coming on that already divisive attitude? And, so I told him, that was great for you to, share that, but I didn't really listen to much of what he said, because I don't like when people are, ignorant, arrogant, condescending, and are like that. And the debate's not supposed to be like that. You're just supposed to provide your evidence and let people decide, not being so arrogant and ignorant that you don't even let people want to decide, because people either like that ignorance and arrogance or they don't. And I'm one of those that I don't like that. I don't like when people come to a debate and they have to use, tactics where they're insulting the person, where they're using these ad hominems, and you're just an idiot, so why would anybody listen to you, this is the way it is. And it's just like, what? Like, I don't know, it shows upon the person opposed to the debate. And that's what I found that out from just listening to this one. And he had probably some good evidence, but I didn't even want to hear it because of how he was.
I think sure, you're going to come across people in life who are more book smart than you, who are more intelligent than me. I would say the majority of people in the world are probably more intelligent than me. That's fine. I'm just the court jester at the end of the day. But I don't. When somebody comes in with such arrogance that they're looking down on someone, they've made a decision about them, and you're an idiot, and that's the end of it. And it puts people off listening, doesn't it? I like to think that when people watch what I do, that they understand that they're part of my little community, and I'm not really anything without my community. I've got some amazing supporters, and many of them will send me links to things that people have said recently, that, oh, you might want to put this into a sketch, or that might work for you, or so-and-so's done this, or so-and-so's over here, and blah blah blah. And people come in and help. I've got my amazing gems who come in and help moderate my chat, and are always there, always promoting me. And we're a team. It's not just me doing something, and I don't think I could do it without the support of my community. It just feel a bit, a bit of a lonely world without them. And for anyone to be so arrogant that they think, well, I know everything, I'm the best this, I'm the best that, and this person that I'm dealing with is is just an imbecile, and I'm going to bring them down. No, I think that you're going to fall flat on your face with that kind of attitude. In the end, it won't end well for you, because people will stop listening. If you go about the world making other people feel stupid because they think a certain way, or they believe a certain thing, and you do it with such unkindness, then that's bad on you. For me, I like to think, I just go, look, come on, we've all been fooled here. We've all gone through it. Don't worry about it. Let's have a joke about it. Let's all smile together. And I think that's the best way to be.
Yeah, and for the guy, if he felt like that and he did like some parody videos of this guy and made fun of him that way, that would be funny and listen. But when you're face to face with someone and you're on a debate, to be ignorant to the person is different than, because, when you're talking, you think should be a certain level of respect between people and communication, and you're trying to have an oral, or a civil communication, and when all you do is insult the person, and well, that's just stupid, and you're just an idiot, and like, I was just like, it was really strange to hear that on such a big show. And then the guys were just laughing at, kind of like egging the guy on, because obviously they didn't think anything of the flat earth or whatever, so they didn't even say anything to say, hey, like, maybe we should have a respectful, because I would never allow that on my show. If people, I've had a debate between people, we had germ theory versus terrain theory, our interview number 200, where we had Dr. Amanda Vollmer, which she's a terrain theory specialist, and then we had a guy who, is germ theory, believes in the virus. And I had him, the first time I had him on, I asked him a question. I said, do you think this virus is real? Because, some people say it's never been isolated. He went off, those dumbass truthers, people that are saying that. And he was like really ignorant and arrogant, right? And then after about 45 minutes of him going off, I dug my heels in. And after that, we went on for 5 hours and 17 minutes. The next 4 hours was a beautiful conversation when I didn't allow him to be like ignorant and arrogant. But people in the comments, what an asshole, he's all this. And people were so mad at the guy and left. They didn't get to hear the next 4.5 hours of brilliant conversation about the world, right? But I just had to take him to a level like, hey, you're talking to me here. Don't, like, I didn't like the insulting and, and things. He wasn't insulting me, but just the arrogance and the ignorance of how his delivery was. I don't allow that to happen. And then he wanted to have a debate. So then I set him up with this Dr. Amanda Vollmer, right? And she just said, just make sure he's not personally attacking me and stuff. And I said, yeah, for sure I will. And, they ended up having a brilliant debate. And, it was great to just hear two different people's. He wasn't prepared like she was. So the terrain theory slaughtered him. She had an opening statement. She had all her arguments. She had a beginning, and he just can't. He's the one that wanted the debate, and he wasn't prepared like she was. So, it was hands down, she slaughtered him in this debate, right? Whether you believe in either theory or not, when you come prepared is a lot different than if you're just trying to wing it, no matter how much you think that when you're going against another professional on that, right? So,
Yeah.
But it turned out to be good. People were asking about Guy Fawkes. Do you know who that is?
Guy Fawkes, yeah.
Someone was asking what your thought of Guy Fawkes Day. I don't know what the question was earlier, but what you thought of Guy Fawkes.
Well, from presumably the line of questioning is from a conspiratorial standpoint with Guy Fawkes. Like, was he set up? Because I could talk about what happened to Guy Fawkes when he was arrested for the gunpowder plot. So, and the reason why I can is because I used to work in the York dungeons. So I used to, when guests came round and they got to the Guy Fawkes bit, I had to tell them all the gruesome details of all the horrific tortures that they put Guy Fawkes through to get a confession out of him before he was eventually executed. It's a very curious story of Guy Fawkes, isn't it? And we only know because it happened so long ago, what we were told from the history books of this is how it happened, and that this guy, standalone guy, who was also called Guy, set up this elaborate plot to blow up the Houses of Parliaments. One guy on his own, who wasn't exactly the brains of Britain, managed to plot and almost carry out something so massive for back in the day, something that huge. There was obviously way more to it than that, and way more people behind it. But he held out. I won't go into details of what was done, but he held out, I think, and I don't believe he gave away any other names before he did pass away. But it was very curious. There is the school that he used to go to, I believe it's St. Peter's School in York, is the only school that does not celebrate bonfire night, that does not.
What's bonfire night?
So
And
was
it a Jesuit school? Because Matt's saying Guy Fawkes is a Jesuit. Did you know if he was or he wasn't?
I don't know. All I know is that the school that he went to will not celebrate bonfire. So bonfire night, we call it bonfire night, is a night where, like your 4th of July, where you set up, well, America's 4th of July, where they set off the fireworks. We set off fireworks because of the gunpowder plot. It was called the gunpowder plot, was foiled before it actually happened, and the Houses of Parliament didn't get blown up. And so we set off fireworks to celebrate that.
Is that Guy Fawkes Day? Is that what they call it?
It's known as like Guy Fawkes. Well, some people call it Guy Fawkes Day. We tend to just call it bonfire night. And people will have big bonfires, and they used to, back in the day, have a guy. So it's like a stuffed scarecrow type thing that they would put on top of the bonfire and set fire to it. And they'd go around and go, penny for the guy, and you'd give some money over, and that you go to charity, and then they'd burn this effigy of Guy Fawkes. It was all a bit creepy, and I never particularly liked that side of it. And a lot of bonfires now don't have any kind of Guy Fawkes effigy on the fire. They just light a fire and set off some fireworks. So it's all a bit, but the school that Guy Fawkes actually went to will not celebrate bonfire night.
Fascinating. The question was, what do you do for Guy Fawkes Day?
Completely different question. Well, we don't.
It's good though. Because I didn't know about it, so that's I'm glad that you gave me some history before you get to answer the question.
I might not have given you exactly the correct history either, so just so you know. But that's what I know of it. But yes, I really did. I really did work in York Dungeon, and had to divulge all the information of the various tortures, medieval tortures that were put on people. Horrible. One of the worst jobs I've ever had, actually. What do I do to celebrate? Well, not much. We have some sparklers and eat a baked potato. Go and watch the fireworks. That's about it. We don't really do anything too grand to celebrate. Yeah, that's about it.
So what's going on in the world, do you think, now? Because we hear about France is burning down. There's been mass migration from all these African countries. Some people believe that this is maybe the Trojan horse is going to happen. A lot of these countries are going to fall. They said everyone except for Poland wasn't accepting any of these people. So a lot of these other countries. What's your take? You're right beside France. So you're very close. You probably hear a little different information than maybe we hear over here, or maybe because you're not in France, maybe you're not. Maybe you're still hearing the propaganda. But what do you think is happening in France, and what's your thoughts on this crazy mass migration from Africa, from all these countries that seem to be causing chaos in a lot of European places?
Well, it's been going on for a long time. To a lot, not just France. A lot of European countries. It's been happening for so long, and we've got a lot of problems with our country as well, where there's a lot of illegal immigration, and our government just doesn't know what to do with any of them. They were trying to send them to Rwanda, bizarrely. It's like, why are you sending them to Rwanda? It was going to cost the British taxpayer an absolute fortune per person, like hundreds of thousands of pounds, to send them to Rwanda. It just didn't make any sense. So we've got our own problems. France has definitely got its problems as well. Politically, for France, I think it's going to be a a lose for Emmanuel Macron when it comes to their elections in the next couple of years. I'd be very surprised if he stayed in any position of power. I think it's really sad to see France changing as much as it is. It seems like, you know, a lot of European countries are very different looking places to how they used to be, and the problem is when the natives of those countries, you know, step forward and say, this is, you know, what's happening to my country, you know, why is all of this immigration happening, and blah, blah, blah. They get, why are you being a bigot, you know, why are you not accepting diversity and blah blah blah, all of that kind of thing. So they feel like they can't say that they're unhappy with what's happening in their country because they do not want to be accused of being a ist or a bigot. You know, people can't seem to have an opinion that, oh well, you know, we're concerned about bringing in an ideology that's entirely different to that of this country, and you know, how are people going to fit into a country that is, you know, very very different from where these people are coming from? How are they going to fit in with our values? What will happen to our values? What will happen with theirs? You know, no one's having the discussion. Everyone's frightened to have the discussion because they don't want to get called a ist or a bigot or whatever, you know. So people keep quiet, and then the streets end up on fire, and you know, obviously something led to that. You know, somebody was unlawfully killed in France, and you know, that's what kicked it all off. It was total overreach by the police officer that shot the teenager, and it looks like he saw a police officer approaching, yelling instruction at him, and accidentally put his foot on the accelerator instead of the brake, and the police officer reacted defensively and fatally shot him. And then there's communities have come forward and said a lot of the French police handle certain members of society differently to others, and that needs looking at, and that could well be true. There's always more to it than there looks like there is. Sorry, I just realized I'm on a swing chair and my chair is like moving loads. I'm like, God, I hope I'm not making you seasick. I'm just like completely wiggling and moving all the time. I apologize.
I'm quite okay. I gotta look at the chat, moderate the chat. I gotta do a lot of things, so I'm good at multitasking. So no, it doesn't bother me at all.
Right, okay. I do. I'm a bit of a fidget, so I do wiggle a lot. But when I'm in a chair that moves, it's even worse. So I do apologise. If anyone's watching this and is like, "What? Okay, you're making me seasick," I apologise.
Right.
Here's
a good question from Remy. How can we tell when it's a false flag operation opposed to just something that organically happens and people are reacting to it? Because it seems like, there are events that are orchestrated by these bad actors, bad agents, rogue agents, government that want to have some of this division, some of this fighting, some of this stuff go down, because the more people get unruly, it gives them more of a reason to come with more tyranny, to come with more, restrictions on freedoms because of your safety that may or may not have happened organically. And this stuff has been happening, more and more frequently in the last 10 years.
I think with cases like this, though, I don't believe that's what it is, that it was, that it was orchestrated in a certain way to bring in something else. I think it's a simple case of people living in a country that is not their native country, congregating within those communities, and there being a lot of distrust between other communities, and then one thing happens and everyone reacts. I mean, they've reacted in the most ridiculous, you know, over the top way, you know, going straight to rioting and setting fire to things, and, you know, letting animals out of the zoo. There's flipping zebras running around streets of France. It's absolutely bizarre. I've seen videos of zebras just trotting down the street. You know, the reaction to what happened. I mean, what happened was awful. Anyone can see that. It was a horrible thing to happen, and completely unnecessary by the sounds of it as well. But the reaction to it has caused all of this, and it's not in proportion at all to what happened. And you know, and then they've got to fix it. And I wouldn't want to be the French government dealing with all of this, and trying to get it right, because they haven't just got one group of people to take into consideration. They've got an entire nation. They've got law enforcement. They've got so many people to take into consideration on how they deal with this. It's really it's a mess, isn't it? It's a complete mess. And this is what happens when, you know, you bring so many different nations together and it doesn't work, I guess.
Yeah, the big problem, I think, is bringing people that are coming from, say, a more third world poverty-stricken place, that are used to maybe the wars, used to fighting for their lives every single day. Then you immigrate them into a first world place where things are civil, and then all of a sudden they don't know how to, you know, maybe act accordingly in that type of, you know, society. So then they're bringing their own ideologies, and then the stuff that happened in their own countries, probably some of the reasons why they have to migrate is because of the terrorism, the bombings, the war that's going on. So then there are a lot of pissed off people because maybe they had their mother, father, brother, you know, sister, girlfriend, wife, someone killed that they loved, and now they're coming to a place where maybe they think that these people are the ones that are responsible, coming from the NATO, the first world. They're the ones, you know, that are coming and responsible for all this destruction. So it's just opening the door for chaos and, you know, not civility, if that's a word, for people being civil towards each other. And, you know, it's not racist to say that. It's, you know, and like, you know, what's your thoughts on people's tongues being cut out, that people can't, you know, talk about these issues because of, how you said, being called a racist or a bigot? But, you know, when you can visibly see things that are going on and you can't talk about it, that's coming to a level of tyranny that I don't think we've never experienced that as a society. And it doesn't seem like it's getting better.
Yeah, you see that a lot in America at the moment as well, with certain ideologies that are being put out there. And when people say, no, I don't want to buy that beer, you know, I don't like the way you're forcing this upon me and telling me I have to accept it. If people complain about, or you know, we don't like what you're saying, that you know, children should be able to identify as whatever and go through like major life-changing surgery. And if you say that they shouldn't, then you're a bigot and you're an obic. You're either an ist or an obic. If you state your opinion, and it's, you see the mainstream media seem very, very keen to silence you with the dangling that threat over your head. I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm sorry, who don't you like? What is this a problem? Why is it a problem? Why have you got a problem with those group of people minding their own business and wanting to live their life and love whoever and and they'll make you out to be the bad guy for, you know, politely putting your hand up and going, but you know, I'm not sure we should be teaching our children this at this age. I'm not sure they should be, you know, learning these things so young, and I'm not very comfortable with that. Oh, well, you're just fill in the blank. That seems to happen a lot. And, you know, people seem to be rising up against people. There seems to be a bit more of a growing confidence now, which is quite interesting. People starting to say, actually, no, I'm not afraid of being called a insulting name, because I know I'm not that person, but I am allowed to ask, you know, I am allowed to ask questions. I am allowed to say, I don't really want my child to be taught that in school, you know. It's nice to see people are slowly starting to stand up to it. It doesn't mean that you are, you know, homophobic or this kind of, it doesn't mean you've got a phobia. That's the other thing. They tell me, why have we all got phobias all of a sudden? Like, why can't you just not like or agree with something? But no, they've got to take it that little bit further. Well, no, you're phobic. What? But I'm not phobic. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of a group of people. I don't have a fear of you. I don't necessarily agree with how you're going about doing things. It doesn't make me afraid of you. It's all just very divisive. All the language is very, very divisive, and it's like it's designed to sort of trip you up. So you will end up saying something that will make yourself sound like a terrible bigot or a terrible ist or a terrible obic. And then you can't back out of it then, because they've slapped that label on you and that's it. And that, you know, you're done, you're cancelled. That's the end of it. It's kind of sad, really, that you've got to walk on diversity eggshells.
Do you think that this is pre-planned? Do you think that there are a shadow government? Do you think that there is a group, you know, that's looking to create a new world order? That a lot of this, they control the media, they control the banks, you know, the Committee of 300, the Bilderberg Group, you know, these groups of people that are actually out there. But some people want to just slough it off that that's just a conspiracy, that they're plotting against these things. But, you know, a lot of these conspiracies end up coming true, you know, with, you know, these groups of people that seem to want to impose their will, you know, make this into a communistic, socialistic place. I guess a good word, I'm not sure if you ever heard, is communitarianism, the mix between communism and capitalism, where, you know, it's a capitalistic place, but the rights of the many outweigh the rights of a few. So they're allowed to, you know, impose their will upon the people. So just wanting to know your thoughts on the overall, you know, New World Order conspiracy, and whether or not you just think that that's, you know, just another conspiracy road to take people down, or do you think that there are, you know, people that are plotting against, you know, to try to control this entire earth?
I think a lot of people are feeding into that and panicking themselves and spending way too much time worrying about it and thinking about it. And chances are it's nowhere near as bad as that. Sure, there are some bad people in the world. There are corrupt politicians in every single country, on every single political side. I don't doubt that there's people who want to control. I don't doubt that there's mass corruption in, you know, every area, not just banking, but in every area. For me personally, I cannot take so much time thinking about it and worrying about it and allowing it to affect how I live my life, because I don't want to be that person. Sometimes I want to be a little bit ignorant of it. Sometimes I want to not spend hours of my day worrying about what could possibly happen and how this world could possibly look. Sometimes I just want to focus on watching some crap on the TV and drinking a cup of tea and not stressing. Sometimes I just want to focus on making sure my kids are okay and happy, making sure my house is a comfortable place to live and a happy place for my children to grow up. Sometimes I just want to watch stand-up comedy and laugh at how ridiculous the world is, or make comedy of my own. I don't want to focus so much on how dreadful the world potentially is, could be, or may be. I think, you've got to take a step back from it sometimes and not get drawn down every single rabbit hole. And, you know, sure, I think about these things and I worry about these things and I get angry about these things. And then I have to think about, well, you know, I have a life to lead in the right here, right now. And I just can't spend, I can't devote that much of my brain to that when I've got a family to think about and, you know, house to run and a marriage. And, you know, I just, yeah. There are shady people everywhere. There are corrupt people everywhere. There are politicians who will give with one hand and take with the other. There are people who are supposed to be in positions of trust who are doing the most horrendous things. And you know, I don't want to think about them too much because I think it would do my head in. I think it would make me paranoid and depressed. I don't want to keep looking down every damn rabbit hole for a false flag here and a, you know, and a cabal there and a black hats there, and where are the white hats, where are the knights in shining armor, where's that secret space program, what's going on? I can't do it. I have to take a moment to just remember that I am me and that I have me stuff going on too, and I don't doubt that there's immense corruption everywhere, but, you know, I've just, yeah, you just can't get pulled in too much.
What's your thoughts on Chuck the Turd? Hope you don't get offended. The new king of the world. You know, he's the king of England, I guess now. So we call him we call him Chuck the Turd here. So I hope that doesn't offend you at all, being British, because, you know, some people, you know, look at the monarchy differently. I have family that watches it and just loves them, and I don't see them that way. I see them in a different light. But what's your thoughts on, you know, the passing of the old and onto the new guard, and, you know, just your overall take on him and what this may mean for England and, you know, potentially the rest of the world?
I was never a particular fan of old Charlie. Not really my cup of tea. I wasn't particularly a monarchist. I'm proud to be British. Because I wasn't much of a monarchist when the Queen died, I didn't particularly think it would interest me until it did. And I was quite surprised at myself how, like, wow, that did affect me. The Queen's been there my whole life, and she did do a hell of a lot. And, you know, obviously there's going to be many people who disagree, but that just my thoughts. I felt, wow, she was an incredible, you know, she did a hell of a lot in her life from a very young age. And, you know, whether you like them or not, they're there and they're not, you know, that institution, it isn't going anywhere. I don't believe they're lizards. I'll just put that out there now. I don't believe that they're lizards. No. But yeah, I'm not a particular fan of Charles. I not my cup of tea, really. Let them crack on, do whatever. I don't think I really don't see it being a huge impact while he's on the throne. I don't think he's going to be on the throne for a particularly long time. Just looking at his fingers alone makes me think that he's not in the best of health.
What does that mean? Like, I don't know what his fingers.
Really like sausage fingers. Have you never seen Prince Charles's fingers?
No, I
don't Prince
really.
Charles, King Charles. And he's got, like, everyone calls him sausage fingers. He's got, like, really unhealthy looking, like he's got too much salt in his diet fingers.
Too much of that adrenochrome in his diet, maybe.
I don't know about that. But actually, there's another brilliant YouTuber, The Reality Wire, and he covered he totally covered and completely debunked the missing children story related to the Queen and Prince Philip as absolute total lies,
Not in
total
Canada.
conspiracy
Not
theories.
in Canada. So anybody that I've actually heard people speak that were part of that residential school in Canada when the kids went missing. So I've heard people's, testimonies about it, about the natives. So anybody that says they debunked it, maybe be working for the Queen and them, because that's absolutely true.
Definitely didn't work for the Queen.
What happened here, but they have agents that makes it like that they're not, in order to, just like the media is supposed to be unbiased, but they work for these people, right? And it's not unbiased, the media. So a lot of the media is indoctrination. So the stuff that happened in Canada is real. And so the stuff when they went with those missing kids, I've interviewed people that have accounts of the stuff that happened there. So that stuff is real. What with these missing children with the Catholic and the Queen, all the missing kids, that's because of the monarchy and the Catholic Church. They were working hand in hand about putting these kids into the residential school. So that stuff isn't conspiracy at all.
The monarchy isn't Catholic, though. They're not.
But they work hand in hand with the church.
I don't particularly trust the Catholic Church. I will agree with you on that. I don't know. Maybe you might be interested to talk to this guy and see what he came up with.
I would love to, talk about that kind of stuff. So especially, so again, please share any contact information, because I want to, have these conversations with people, just so we can, have conversations, especially if people are, not on the same page, because not only it's important to show people that you can have civil conversations with people that you don't agree with. I think that's important. But then to get to the bottom of some of these things on why they think that that's debunked, when it was in the papers, it was in the newspapers here about some of this stuff. There's articles about, those missing children. So I definitely don't agree that that's a conspiracy of what happened in Canada. And then apparently she wasn't allowed to come back to Canada or something like that, why they never had any visits here again after that. So it was just some stuff, but interesting your take on the monarchy, because you being English, it's good to hear people's opinions on because we come from a Commonwealth country, which England kind of owns, right? Well, all the Commonwealth countries, and some people even believe here that the English don't have any power. The Queen didn't have any power here. It was just done as symbolic, but nothing can be passed in the House of Commons here, nothing without the approval of the Governor General. They can kibosh it, they can veto it. Every single province, like the way the political system is working, and as well as the monarchy got money from us. The Queen has crown land here, which is land here in Canada, which I think like 40% of the land mass is owned by the Queen here. So they did have a lot more pull here than what people are led to believe, because a lot of people believe that they don't have any say, and it's just symbolic, this monarchy, which I don't believe that to be the case.
I think the land will change a little bit with that as they move through the monarchs, and because they are making quite a lot of changes with the royal family and how things are done with the institution. So maybe when Charles is out of the picture and it becomes the younger royals, that landscape might change as well, and perhaps Canada will become more independent from the royal reach. Maybe.
Well, I want them all out, right? That's personally what I hope, that we all can just have our own and work on our own. But right now, the big push is UNDRIP. So it's a United Nations declaration to give the land back to the Indigenous people. Yeah. But again, it's a United Nations directive, and they're not have anyone's best interest at heart. But so it's not even. I've had even some of the Native American Indians talking about how bad this UNDRIP is, because they have not blackmailed, but they've coerced all of the people on the native council members and to do the bidding for the government, opposed to taking care of what the people is. They get all this money and they live in big fancy houses, while most of the indigenous people, just get their small little checks, but they're, being not good things. They're not taking care of their people like they should. So we still got a lot of work to fixing society to get us into a better place. But I think that that's one thing that we all agree on, that we do want to get us into a better place where we start taking care of each other, because there's a lot of systematic problems, that's coming from government top down that needs to be, changed in order for us to come back together as people and start looking out for each other, opposed to sending all this money for wars and all these kind of insane things that, is happening in the world that I really don't agree with.
Yeah. Well, it's ever changing, isn't it? And there's always hope that things are going to get better. I don't think things are only just going to go from worse to worse to worse to worse. I don't see that. I think everything's interchangeable, and things, that's how the world revolves, isn't it? That's how the world works. Everything evolves and changes over time. Sometimes it takes a bit longer than people want, but change does come eventually, doesn't it?
Do you think that this last 3 years, it was pre-planned, like the Event 201, a lot of evidence, a lot of things, or do you think it was just some rare anomaly of some bat having sex with the pangolin and all of a sudden it transferred into humans and next thing you know, the world is locked down? Like, do you believe in that, or do you still not sure about, things, how they transpired?
I think that I think that their origin story that they tried to convince the world with about bats and soups and all of that stuff, just come on. No, I'm not falling for that. I said that from the get-go. I don't think that's how it started. As far as the rest of it is concerned, who knows? But I think the official narrative is, I think they're just hoping everyone would go along with, and oh wow, oh how terrible, and and not question. I don't think they were quite prepared for the pushback worldwide that they got over it, and I think governments in every country made the most ridiculous mistakes with what they expected people to do. Yeah, I think people were not expecting quite how how the world reacted.
It was amazing before it all happened. In 2019 was the year of the riots. A lot of countries were starting to riot, push back against the governments. People were starting to get really, really angry. And then all of a sudden, this happens where everything is locked down. So now people are starting to become awake and aware of what really transpired, of how they did all the mistakes that they made. But now the next thing, they're probably the next fake alien invasion, or who knows what is next on the plan to get people not thinking about what that just happened. And apparently 2024 is where they're supposedly the alien invasion is coming. Have you thought about that? Have you heard about that? Do you think that that's a possibility, that aliens are coming, that are here, that are other, or potentially they're going to be attacking the Earth here in the near future?
Like Mars attacks. Mars attacks on steroids. I don't know. I mean, just when you think one ridiculous thing's over and done with, then along comes the next nonsense for us to deal with. I think 2024 is definitely going to be a very interesting year. Obviously, election time again, isn't it? And so there's people's attention's going to turn more to politically, political interests, and who knows the shenanigans that are going to go on. Who knows? But what we can guarantee is whatever it is, it's going to be ridiculous, because it's always something completely ridiculous. and maybe it will bring humanity together in, you know, or maybe it will divide us even more. I hope not. I think there's enough division that, you know, yeah, I hope whatever comes, humanity stand together and, you know, unite and treat each other well. But
That's the hopes, and that's part of the reason why I do the work that I do, is just to educate or enlighten people to different people's perspectives from different parts of the world. You know, it's in the hopes that we can have some common ground and maybe bring people together, opposed to, you know, everybody just at each other and everybody's the enemy, everybody. And if everybody's the enemy, then, you know, then we're in big trouble. I think that there's a lot more good people here than not. And I just think that there's a lot more common ground with people than there isn't. And I think that that's got to be something, the binding glue that puts us together. That, you know, do you believe that this is a spiritual battle? Like, are you, you know, religious at all? You know, attack on the soul. Some people believe it's the final fight between, you know, good and evil, that, you know, that people will either come together in the goodness, you know, for humanity, or, you know, this is the final lockdown before we get fully enslaved. Like, do you believe any of that stuff at all?
No. I just, I don't know. I get why people would think that. And it does feel like that sometimes. It does. But for me, I think the soul's journey is just that. It's your soul. It's your individual journey. It's your individual experience. And, you know, it's like art, isn't it? Some people will like that piece of artwork in a gallery and other people will not. I think everybody's journey, everyone's experience on this planet is unique to them. Their beliefs are unique to them. And if you feel that you're in a spiritual battle and, you know, it's good versus evil, and, you know, you've got to fight and do this, and then that's what you feel, and that's you, that's your journey, that's your experience. If you don't, you don't. Some days I do, some days I don't, and I think it depends how much focus I'm prepared to put on it, really, and how much I just want to just step out for a minute and go, no, let's just be me for a bit and not focus on the craziness in the world.
15-minute cities. Have you heard of them? I heard
Yeah,
something in the UK that you're supposedly, so this, we just interviewed some Native American, and he's saying that this is going to be the white man's reservation. They got put on to reservations for many, many years. The stuff that happened to the, you know, North American Indians is horrific, horrendous, and, you know, nobody can disagree on that. But he believes that this is the new, you know, reservations that humanity is going to be put on again. This communitarianism, it's the greatest good. Climate change, if we don't keep people into their little cities, you know, this climate's going to be destroyed. And so I heard that in England they've already started some of these 15-minute cities. So maybe you can share any knowledge you have on that. Thankfully
not near me, but there is a huge amount of pushback. People are standing up and saying, absolutely not, you're going to wreck my business, I can't get to work. And loads of tradesmen unable to get to where they need to be to do their job properly. You know, they can't afford the petrol because if they've got to go round a certain way, it's going to put them out of business. There's a massive pushback on it, and people, I don't believe that people will sit back and allow it. I really don't. They might try and push for stuff like this, but I honestly don't believe they're going to succeed, because people really are standing up against it. So I very much doubt they'll succeed with it if that's what they're trying to do. People have sacrificed enough over these last few years and gone along with things and accepted things, and, you know, done as they were told to do, and they've got to a point where they've gone, oh, whoa, that's enough. Not doing that now. That's ridiculous. If they're going to end up, losing the business over it, people already had their businesses wrecked in 2020. And yeah, they will. I think they've picked certain parts of the country. I think
Oxfordshire, someone said.
Yeah, but I think from what I'm seeing, a lot of people are standing up against it and saying, this is not going to work. How are people supposed to pay the mortgages? How are people supposed to pay their rent? Where do you expect people to live? What? This isn't going to work if you're going to completely destroy everything. I mean, what was the guy's name who said that New York was going to be underwater by 2019? Who was that said that? That politician, the American politician. The hell's his name?
Al Gore, maybe?
Yes, I think it was Al Gore, wasn't it? And so I don't know if I'm hallucinating, but I still see buildings in New York, and there's, a population in New York. Everything seems to be normal in New York. So I think there's a lot of predictions about that particular subject that are entirely wrong. So I just think if that's what they're pushing in order to get these, I think it's ULEZ they're called, these 15-minute cities in place, then that they are going to have a fight on their hands, because people won't stand for it. Not if it means that their homes and their businesses are at stake. And also, not everybody's children goes to school in the area that they live in. Some, certainly in our case as well, my children don't go to school in the area that we live in. We have to go slightly outside of. So it's, it would, the knock-on effect and the chaos it would cause is not going to be worth it in the end, because I think people will stand up and say this is just ridiculous.
One way they might counter that is with UBI, the Universal Basic Income. We're all going to give you money. You have to stay here for the next 2 years or whatever it is. Wanda says signs are going up in Vancouver. COVID was our warn up, and many enjoy their prisons. Some people, they don't care about stuff that's happening to them. What's really sad to see. I heard some stuff that went on in the UK government about people that in the officials about the lockdowns, how they were making jokes about it, that they were all wait till we use this for the next one, or I don't know. And it came out some of their public conversations about some of the. Do you remember hearing about that? Maybe could you tell us a little bit?
I don't know too much about it. I know it was what they called it WhatsApp Gate, and it was a journalist she was writing a book for the Matt Hancock, who was the health minister at the time.
That's the one.
And bizarrely, he had given her access to his WhatsApp messages, and perhaps he had forgotten the things that were said in the WhatsApp group, because she just discovered a treasure trove of all sorts of things. Interestingly, it did go into the news, but it went out quite quick. Like
they own the news. That's not interest. That's just, they don't want to have things exposing themselves to public. Like, as much as, people think it may be a conspiracy, they own all the media outlets, they own all the advertising, the media outlets. So we basically only get to hear what they want us to hear. That's why independent media outlets and independent journalism and things like that is getting more and more important, because most people hopefully are just looking more for the truth, opposed to just part of their whole plan, their mass plan of whatever that may be.
There's a few that will push back on that aren't part of that mainstream media. There's a few more independent ones. There's a few that are coming up in the UK now that call out this kind of stuff and expose it. So it's there are changes coming in. There
Tides are
are
turning.
changes coming in, and there are people that are saying, actually, no, not having that, not having this, not standing for that. And they have a platform. So again, I don't feel like everything is all going down the pan and everything's terrible, and the world's coming to a terrible end and it's a spiritual battle and we're going to lose it. And I think humanity is stronger and more robust than we're perhaps given credit for, and we can only be pushed so far before we push back. So I'm not. I don't feel like all is lost and that we're living in this, apocalyptic world where we're all going to be fighting our neighbors for bread and milk or whatever. I don't think it's going to get to that point.
I hope it, yeah, I hope it never does. I have faith in humanity, as much as I, can have faith. I believe the body is resilient. That's, hence they try to inject all this stuff into people and people aren't getting as sick as, there are people that are being affected, but, the body is resilient. I think people are resilient. I think people will eventually stand up if pushed into a corner enough. And, I think that there's lots of people working underground the scenes, trying to make things, maybe take back the governments that I think have been infiltrated by a lot of these parasites. So I think that there's a lot of things that are happening that people aren't aware of because, they have to do it in a way of a little bit more secrecy. But I think there is more happening than people are aware of to try to become free again, because ultimately we just want to live our lives in peace and be free. I think that's what everybody truly wants, except for obviously the small little percentage that wants to control everybody else. But, and there are those people out there. There's no denying that there's the people that want to control others. And we've seen that throughout history. And, I don't think there's no different now, but I believe there's more good people than bad. Is there anything that we haven't talked about here today that you maybe wanted to share, before we wrap this up?
I think we've probably covered everything, haven't we? No, it's God, it's actually getting dark outside now. It was nice and light when we started this conversation, so we've definitely had a good chat, haven't we?
Yeah. Okay, great. So maybe tell us about your channels, how people can find you. And you shared a little bit about what you do on the channels, but anything that you wanted to do to self-promote, to, for people to want to look into your work more.
Sure. Well, I have Intel Lady on YouTube. I also on TikTok. I don't really like TikTok. I feel too old to be on TikTok. It confuses me. But I'm also on TikTok, Intel Lady 1. I tend to do more political characters and recently been covering all the Just Stop Oil protesters. People think I'm a genuine Just Stop Oil protester, so I guess I must be doing it right if they actually believe me. It's quite good fun bantering with it. I don't tell them. I just can't continue talking as if I am a protester, because if they're not going to read my bio that clearly says this is a satire channel, then I'll just keep winding them up. So I have TikTok, Intel Lady 1 on TikTok, Intel Lady on YouTube, also on Twitter. And for my spiritual stuff, I also have Lightworker Lady on YouTube. I've got some really lovely meditations on my channel. If people are interested in meditations, then check it out. I don't post there much at the moment. Perhaps I will in the future, but at the moment it's more for my comedy, really, which is Intel Lady on YouTube and TikTok.
One last question. A couple of people asked about your thoughts on Mel K, because I recently had our 500th interview where we had an ex-Hollywood actor who really focuses on, trying to expose some of the, pedophilia and different things that are happening and stuff. She shared that interview out. And then I asked her, I said, hey, would you like to be on the Missing Link? She said yes. I don't really know too much about her, but she said reach out to, this email, and I emailed them and they never responded yet. But there's a couple people that, asked and say, hey, what's your thoughts and your opinion on Mel K? And it'd be great to hear before I interview it, if it actually does happen.
Well, I parodied her, so awkward. Yeah, I parodied her because she went on with a lot of the grifters like Charlie Ward. And so she was on my list, I guess. I haven't parodied her for a while because I haven't noticed that she's been, I think she's separated herself from quite a lot of the blatant con artists. And maybe she didn't realize, I don't know, maybe she got caught up in the moment and perhaps she didn't realize that they were just grifters. And I think her heart's probably in the right place. I was never mean about her, but I did parody her back in the day. I haven't done it for a while, but yeah, I'm sure she's lovely, really. Have her on, have a chat.
Well, it'll be good to ask her what she thinks about people doing parodies about her, and I'll ask her that question.
Ask her, yeah. Why
like
not? She probably doesn't know.
when we had David Icke on when we first started this show, I got hammered. Oh, he's controlled opposition. He's this. And, I can't believe you must be controlled opposition if you're having him on your show. And I got hammered. So I just straight up asked him, have you ever been asked to be in a secret society? And he laughs and he goes, they know better than that, right? And I asked him, people said, well, how come he's allowed to talk and everybody else is getting censored? And I said, so how come you're able to talk and most other people are getting sick? You think I'm able to be talked to? He says I've been banned from here and banned from doing this, and so. But I just ask questions that other people want to know, right? I'm not there. It doesn't matter how big the person's name is. I'm not there to kiss anybody's ass. I'm just here to ask real, honest questions of people that other people want to know. And most people, and David Icke said at the end, he's like, this was fun. We were only supposed to do an hour and we were an hour and 50 minutes. So he went 50 minutes over what the scheduled time that they gave me. And he said it was fun after, at the end or whatever, because I was asking him different questions than just the normal questions that a lot of people would ask of him about what's going on in the world. I wanted to dig a little bit more into him and his ties and things, because that's what I was getting from the people when I did interview him. So that's what we're about here at The Missing Link.
Yeah, and that's good. It's good to be able to listen to people and talk to people that you don't necessarily agree with. I think that's healthy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for all you're doing to bring some humor into maybe some type of dark, discussions or areas of life that some people are really focused on, the darkness part of it. And maybe when you bring some humor, it'll help them, maybe put a smile on their face to maybe some stuff that they're really focused on. It sounds like you're, doing real good work. So thanks, M Seeker of Truth, for, linking us, together. He said, reach out to Intel Lady. She'll be great, to have on. And this was a great discussion. I like to talk with people with, just all kinds of views from all kinds of different parts of the world. So I did, appreciate this interview.
Absolute pleasure. It was lovely to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, may the source be with you in all that you do. Thanks, everybody, for all your likes, comments, heart, shares, and stars. We appreciate all of your love and support. Please share this out. I'm Jesse Howe. I'm the host here of The Missing Link. Our next Missing Link is tomorrow. It's going to be with Michael Bell, who's a Canadian or a former Canadian soldier, and he's going to share his compelling story about the stuff that's happened to him in his journey. That's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And may the source be with you all. And we'll see you next time we see you back on The Missing Link. Bye, everyone. Bye, Jen.
Bye.